Hi everyone, welcome to my very first video interview. As many of you know, I write a lot about various things taking place in the Greek American community on the Pappas Post. But this time I wanted to come and do a video interview because we've written several stories on the Pappas Post about this particular issue that's happening here in New York City. And I must say, it has been one of the hottest issues we've ever covered. And as a result, I wanted to come straight to the source and introduce you to somebody here in New York City who could be directly impacted by what we're calling the fur ban. The city council member here in New York City wants to ban the sale and the production of all fur in New York City. He claims to be an animal rights activist. He has 10 co-sponsors of the bill. And I have to tell you, walking here to Ana Moda on 30th Street to meet Angelo Anastasiou, it was one Greek name after the other walking down the street. It was very interesting. I've never been in the fur district before. And on that note, Angelo, I want to introduce you to a very vocal audience, readers of the Pappas Post who are on all sides of the spectrum. I don't know if you've ever logged into the Facebook page, but boy, there's some very, very strong opinions on this matter. But before we get to that, I want to hear a little bit about you, where you're from, how you got into this business with these coats, and talk a little bit about all the Greek names that I've seen up and down 30th Street, 31st, 29th Street. Such an impact.
Absolutely. I was born in Castoria and I immigrated to the United States when I was 16. My father was a furrier also. And when I came here, I went to school, but I always worked part-time in the fur industry. And it gave me an opportunity not to be a financial burden on my father when he needed money because he came here very poor. And I was able to educate myself, go through college by working in the fur industry. And after college, I made the choice. I started loving what I was doing here. So I made a choice to start my own company and see if I could possibly have a potential. Well, I fell in love with the industry. I fell in love with creating, making garments, manufacturing garments, and wholesaling. And basically today, I'm a wholesaler. This industry here was primarily Jewish and Greek. There were small businesses that were established. In the 80s was the peak of the industry. We had about 13,500 workers here. And then slowly, as cheaper markets evolved around the world, people started manufacturing all around the world. I was manufacturing in Greece, we were doing some manufacturing in Italy, and then eventually, to stay competitive, we had to do some of our manufacturing in China. Today, we still manufacture and import from Greece. We have a factory here in a different location that we do a lot of restyling and a lot of special orders and small manufacturing, and then we manufacture also in China. All the Greek names here, these are small businesses that either were started by the parents and now the kids took over, or kids that worked very hard developed these businesses. They put a lot of work and effort into establishing their businesses, and today they're faced with this issue.
Before we talk about the specific issue, I read some statistics while preparing for this interview. More than half of the industry is Greek-owned, if I understand correctly.
More than half of the industry is Greek-owned, and I would say that 60 to 70% of the workforce in the industry today is Greeks and Greek Americans. So the Greek community is going to be heavily impacted. Traditionally,
you're talking about thousands of potentially unemployed people.
Thousands of potentially unemployed people from the Greek community, and it's devastating. The majority of these people are a little older. It's difficult, and there is the theory that they could always get another job. And when Councilman Corey Johnson suggested, well, they could train themselves to another job. At 58, You cannot train people
I
for
think
another
about my
job.
dad, the restaurant owner.
Right.
Later in his life, there was no other job that my dad could be trained to do.
And all these people are going to get other jobs. But when you're making $70,000 a year, let's say on an average, and you go get into a new job that you have no experience at all, and you go to $15 per hour at age 58, you can pay your mortgage, you can help you with your kids' education, and you can barely make ends meet. So there is a huge difference of what that other job is going to be with what they have today. They don't know how to do anything else. Like I do. I could do a lot of things. But I've been doing this since age 16, and most of these people that are in the industry, they've been doing it all their lives. They're not trained to do anything else that would earn them a good income. And we know with today's economy, all 58-year-olds that got out of work 10 years ago with economic crisis, they're still struggling. They're still not all fully employed. People want young kids into their industries. They don't want 58-year-olds.
Of course.
And we see that happening all over.
You know, Angelo, I hear you, and there's definitely an economic argument, and we definitely have to think about the thousands of people that could be impacted by this. But I've spent countless hours reading the comments on the various Pappas Post articles that we've published. And the one thing that I think people are most concerned about, beyond the economic argument, probably because they're not being touched by it themselves, it's the perception that this industry is inhumane toward animals, that these poor animals are being trapped and killed just so that somebody can look good. How do you respond to that?
The industry has gone long ways. First of all, whatever we work on is approved by the US government, is approved by EU. It's raised in a very acceptable way and manner. The farms are inspected by the auction houses. Everybody makes sure that there is a certain protocol followed as far as how we raise the animals, how we take care of them. And if we didn't take care of the animals properly, the quality of the fur wouldn't be there. There is a lot of lies that have been spread by PETA and other anti-fur organizations over the years. And that video that PETA has been showing for years of an animal being skinned alive, it was proved, and we have documentation. It was a lie. They went and paid somebody in China to do it, and the guy did it just for the money. And PETA has a lot of very aggressive tactics. As far as trap animals are concerned, the only animals that are getting trapped are the ones that our government allows people to go ahead and trap, to keep a balance in the environment. If we don't trap them, the government is going to spend money to go trap them to keep a balance. Years back, I remember up in Canada, they had a huge issue with the beavers polluting the water reservoirs. They overpopulated so much. And if you look at the late 80s and 90s, we had rabies in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, from the raccoons that were coming down. And so we don't violate. There are very, very strict rules about endangered species from our government. We get a fish and wildlife license. If we were caught working with something that we were not, there is imprisonment and probably put you out of business, and we never did. The fur industry, if anybody checks throughout the years, has never been involved in doing anything illegal. We are an honorable community of small businessmen and family-owned businesses. PETA accuses, and people are saying, that instead of faux fur, some people were selling garments that had animal pelts, dog and cat pelts. And if there is an issue with faux fur, absolutely, they should go after them. But nobody ever accused the fur industry of using such animals.
What about the people that say, let's switch to faux fur? I've done my own research and read that the majority of faux fur is made from petroleum-based products. It's worse on the environment. It's toxic in some cases.
Absolutely. It would pollute our waterways. It's non-biodegradable. And in a study that they made in New York, we were trying to ban plastic straws with plastic bags in the supermarkets, and it got voted into that. 5,500 straws are equivalent to one furrier jacket. They do the same damage as 5,500 straws. So it's non-biodegradable, and it's not ecological that people believe that buying a fur coat is better than buying fur. Fur is a renewable resource. It lasts for a long period of time, and we are not affecting the environment at all. The animals are raised, and I'm repeating it, in a very humane way. The fur industry has been in the process of developing the fur mark, which is a labeling of all the furs that we are going to be using are going to be approved by the auction houses around the world, and the auction houses are in EU countries or North America. They are going and they're inspecting the farms, the dressing plants, that we are not using chemicals that are not proper, and we are not going to allow anybody to infiltrate our fair market in the United States with products that are not acceptable, that are not raised in a humane way.
During my research preparation for this interview, I was doing a lot of comparison and contrast, and I have to admit, I was surprised to see that your industry is more regulated than the food industry. I mean, in many cases, the fur industry, and it was shocking to see the number of rules that you guys have to go by versus the food that we eat.
Absolutely.
I mean, the cows and the chickens that we're eating that are massacred on a daily basis for our food consumption don't have the regulation that you have.
Absolutely. We've always been a very, very regulated industry. Trapping in the United States has been very, very regulated throughout the years. And PETA and all the other groups are coming with all those fake videos or fake agendas that they have. And I respect everybody that's an animal activist. They have a right to believe at what they believe. They could try and pursue their agenda and try to change people into doing anything. I am not working against them, but they should also allow, and government should allow, people to have the freedom of choice.
And on that note, I wanted to talk to you about that, because a lot of people are afraid that today the city council wants to ban furs. Tomorrow they want to take away Canada Goose. The day after that, it's going to be leather belts. The day after that, it's going to be the cheeseburger people are eating.
Well, basically, if that's the agenda of the animal rights groups, and if you read the agenda of PETA, eventually they believe that everybody should be vegan, and we shouldn't be eating meat. And then the Councilman Corey Johnson goes in the news and says that he accepts the use of leather. Are the cows getting killed in a more humane way? Are all those chickens that we eat, the millions of chickens per day, that they're killing in a more humane way? I mean, there is a degree of hypocrisy there of what it is. If you are all for it, I have a total utmost respect for you. That's what you decide to believe in life. But don't tell me that your leather belt is okay. But if your leather belt had fur on it, it wouldn't be okay. And it's all done for political reasons right now. People have different political agendas, and this extreme right now, they're trying to pass anything to gain votes, I believe. And they are not looking at the consumer rights. We have rights as citizens of these countries. A lot of us, when I grew up in Greece, I grew up in a dictatorship. And there were restrictions there. And I have more appreciation of my rights and my freedom that I found in this country that I love than anywhere else. And now they're telling me that if my wife wants to buy a fur coat in New York, she cannot, regardless if I'm a furrier or not. That's her choice in life. The government should never dictate what we eat or what we should wear. But then New York City all of a sudden votes that, yeah, we could smoke marijuana on the streets of New York City.
Mm-hmm. So the ban already is in place in Los Angeles and San Francisco. And you think they're copying what's happening?
Oh, definitely they're copying it. They thought it was an easy fix, but there is no farriers, very few farriers in Los Angeles and in San Francisco. Practically there is no manufacturing done in those areas, just retail stores. And the ban is not effective yet. It goes into effect in January. And I am very sure the local businesses are going to somehow at some stage end up in court for unconstitutionality of what their city councils have passed. It's absurd to put
So
somebody...
politically, this is happening in New York City, but is there action also happening on the state level?
There is action. It hasn't been worked. There is a proposal. Nothing has happened with that proposal yet. And we, of course, are looking into it, and we are trying to see at where all these things are going and at which pace they are going. Our priority right now is the city of New York, and our priority is the city of New York, and on Wednesday we are having the hearing at the city council, and of course the industry is planning a demonstration, and we want to go in
That's
front...
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes. We want to go in front of the council people in the city of New York and explain to them our concerns. We want them to understand who we are, because they didn't visit us to see who we are, what we do for a living, and where we come from. And that's all is going to happen tomorrow. It goes through the Committee of Consumer Affairs. And then based upon the recommendation of that committee, there is going to be a vote now, or there is going to be a further study requested for environmental review and economic review.
And how many members of the city council have supported Speaker Johnson's initiative so far? What does it look like politically?
Right now, the ban is supported by an additional 9 members openly, but we also have 8 people that already are supporting us. We have been very, very successful once we got the opportunity to explain to council people that we have a lot of neutral bodies all of a sudden. Everybody thought we were finished. But all the council members, after they stay and they talk to us and they hear what we have to do, and we give them our arguments, and we have experts that are testifying on the environmental safety of what we do. And they seem to be they entertaining the education, and they are adapting to what we are saying, and they're having a very neutral role. At this stage, I think we are pretty close to getting even with the opposition. And I think that we stand a very good chance there, because everything has been shifting, really.
So tomorrow the demonstration is happening outside City Council. What time?
It's happening between 9 and 11. We are gathering there at 8 o'clock. It's going to be on the steps of City Hall. And
is everybody going to be wearing fur coats?
I
saw on the news the other day the African American community.
Yes.
It was 75 degrees in New York City, and they all showed up in fur hats.
Yes, they all did.
Which that's another thing I wanted to ask you. This is a very interesting connection, because you've got the 3 communities that are supporting this initiative to fight the ban. Is the Greek community, the Jewish community, and the African American community.
Absolutely. The African American community has been very active on this. They love their fur coats.
It's a cultural symbol for them.
It's a cultural and lifelong dream. Every black woman that I've known or sold her a fur garment or met, her dream was to own that mink coat to go to church on Sunday. Mm-hmm. She loves it. It's a matter of status. It's a matter
my
of
mother's
wealth.
dream too.
Yes.
I mean, my mother worked really hard, and boy, when she got that first fur back in the 70s, 80s, I don't know, she wore it so proudly. I'd be like, Mom, it's 65 degrees out. Maybe put the fur away. Όχι, θα βάλω τη γούνα μου, she said.
Ακριβώς.
She was very proud of her fur
Ακριβώς.
coat. So it's not just a black
No,
cultural thing.
it's not, but it shows, it gives them status in the community there. It's a way of showing that, I worked hard and I am better off today than when I got started in life, and I can afford a few good things. And for them, a few good things is a fair code to go to church on Sunday.
But, and I have to be fair, there are a lot of people out there who are saying fur's time has come. What do you say to that?
It hasn't. I've been in business for 39 years. I have continuous growth. For 39 years, my business is growing. And I see it today. My business hasn't been as good as it is today ever.
Wow.
Our product went through its cycles and crises throughout the years, but today it's very, very acceptable. Women of all economic levels are buying fair garments, they wear them, and the thing that makes me feel very good is that I see a lot of successful women in the 30s, mid-30s to mid-40s are buying fair. They were not buying fair 15 years ago. They were a little more reserved. Today they're buying it. I don't care if it's in the form of buying a parka that's trimmed with a fair thing, or if it's a funky fair jacket. But we have that customer. And when you have young people wearing fair, then the business is doing very well. Just try on a Friday night. I remember last winter on a Friday night I was having dinner with my son in the city, and it got cold, and we saw so many fair vests on the streets from young girls. Mm-hmm. It was the best thing for me. It was such a pleasure. Everybody got them out of the closets and they're wearing it. It has nothing to do with what the value of the fair is. It's liking it as a fashion item. And it is, the industry went a long way. We are more creative. We are paying closer attention to our customer. We are not the traditional fair code. That's not where our business is today. We do a lot of very, very fashionable little things. We use a lot of color. We use a lot of little things. Fashion became a little better. Women today are going to the gym. They want to have those great bodies. So we design where they could show those great bodies that they form by working hard at the gym every day. But I'm totally positive on my industry.
So tomorrow, Angelo and his cadre of Greek furriers are going to be at the steps
We are
of
all
City
going
Hall.
to be there, and we hope that everybody that sees us, support us. We are fighting for our income. We are fighting for our lives, and let us do what we love. We are not hurting anybody.
Yeah, and I want my audience to know that we did reach out to 3 city council members and requested an interview because we do want to share all sides of the story, and we haven't heard back from them. So Angelo is going to be reading your comments and your questions on this post. He is a man who loves to be educated. I've seen that in my interactions with him. He asks a lot of questions. Thank you all for watching. Angelo, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to give my side of the story and the industry side of the story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.